Let's talk slope. When you're given 2 points on a line in coordinate formation, to find the slope of that line, we use the following formula. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Okay? Now, do you remember when we did the distance formula and the midpoint formula, how we labeled our points x1, y1, x2, y2 to help us out? Well, the same thing can be applied here. Okay, this is talking about the x-coordinate of your first point, your y-coordinate of your first point, your x-coordinate of your second point, and your y-coordinate of your second point. Sometimes you'll see slope written like this, delta y over delta x. Have you seen that before? So sometimes in science they use delta to stand for the word change. So the change of y, change of x. So if you see like the little triangles, that's the delta symbol, Greek letter delta. Sometimes it's written like that. Okay, so can we find the slope between 2 points? Here are your 2 points, -2, 9 and 3, 7. What did you do on your homework? To find slope, if you need to, label your first point x1, y1. Remember, each point has an x and a y. Common mistakes that you guys made when doing the distance formula is you made that say x1, x2. Well, it's xy, first point. That's why there's sub 1s. Your second point would be x2, y2. So now just plug it into the slope formula. So m is equal to y sub 2, which is 7, minus y sub 1, which is 9, all over x sub 2, which is 3, minus a -2. What happens to minus a negative? Goes to a positive. So 7 minus 9 is -2 over 5. There's your answer. Slope is always written as a fraction. If it needs to be an improper fraction, it will be an improper fraction. So you never write slope as a mixed number. Leave it as an improper fraction. And the only time we really talk about slope being a decimal is when it's in context to maybe money and you want it to put it into decimal form. Okay? Would you be able to do this for your homework tonight? Okay, good. All right, so now let's talk about all the different types of slopes that we could have. What would a positive slope of a line look like? So positive, this or this? The first or the second? That's positive slope. If you work from left to right, would you be going uphill or downhill? You're going downhill, so that'd be negative. So a positive slope is a line that goes up from left to right. Just like you read left to right, hopefully you read left to right, you read lines from left to right. So positive slope would be going in the upward direction from left to right. Negative slope would be going downward from left to right. Okay. Zero slope would be a flat line. Oops, that wasn't very flat. Make yours as flat as you can. So it's going straight across. Notice.
Does that only have a y-axis?
Huh? A y-intercept, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Notice my rise is equal to 0, and my run is going to be equal to some type of number. So it's not rising up or down, but we'll have maybe 2 or 3 or -5 or -6 or -100. Whatever this number is in your denominator. So 0 is in the numerator for zero slope. When we're talking undefined slope, that's straight up and down. So maybe right here. Now where's the 0 going to fall? On the rise or the run? So remember, slope is rise over run. So here it's rising some number, but it's running 0. So 0 is in the denominator whenever you have an undefined slope. If you want to put the little notation next to undefined up here, feel free to do that. If you don't want to write out the word undefined and just use the 0 with the slash through it, you can do that. Okay? All right, so we've got slope down. Now, what do you guys remember about parallel lines and their slopes? Now think about it. If I put a parallel line up here, what should be true about their slopes? They should be the same, right? So the slopes of parallel lines are going to be the same. Do you remember what it is for perpendicular? Opposites is part of it. When you mean opposites, what do you mean? Okay, so the reciprocal. So if we had a line, let me do it up here. Don't write this, just watch. I feel like I should have a graph. Let's make it large. There. All right, so if I were to graph a line, let's say, we'll make this my axis. I can do better. There we go. All right, so let's do a slope of 1/2. So up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2. Here's my line. Oops. If I would need a line that is perpendicular to this line, oops. What, right now, this is a positive or a negative slope? Positive. So would my line also be positive for it to be perpendicular? Right now it's positive, right now it's positive, right now it's positive. Right now it's positive. Am I perpendicular with that line? Now I'm positive, now I'm positive. Oop, now I'm undefined. Am I perpendicular now? That's a right angle? No. Okay, now I keep going. I'm trying to find that right angle. This is looking pretty good. Right angle-ish, right?
So would it have the same slope as negative?
So same slope but negative. So we got the negative. So if I have a positive slope, the perpendicular has to be a negative. If my slope was negative to start, then it needs to be positive. So it needs to be opposite in sign. Now let's think about this. Where do you think it would be a good perpendicular line? Tell me when to stop. Okay. You want me to stop there? Stop there? Can I get this to make a right angle? Let's see.
Sort of.
Here's like kind of my right angle. So if we make this, all right, let's get a point here. All right. Let's pretend we're right about here. So what would be this slope? Is it 1/2? Rise over run. What's my rise? So am I going up 2 and going backwards -1? So what would be the slope? 2 over -1, which is -2. What was my original slope? 1 over 2. So what do you notice about those numbers? They're opposite in sign, and they are reciprocals of each other. So the slopes of perpendicular lines are going to be opposite reciprocals of each other. So opposite reciprocals of each other. So when I say the word opposite, that means opposite in sign. So positive, negative, negative, positive. If your slope is 0, what's the opposite sign of 0? Well, is 0 positive or negative? No. So there is no opposite sign of 0, but the reciprocal of 0 would be undefined, right? So a 0 slope would be perpendicular with an undefined slope. All right, let's flip on to the back. Let's make sure we've got this down. So if I tell you that a line has a slope of 2, what would be the slope of a line that is parallel to it? 2, right? Because what do we say about the slopes of parallel lines? They are the same, right? So we're going to use this little notation here. Remember, the two lines next to each other means parallel. So I'm saying the slope of the parallel line. Remember, this upside down T is our symbol for perpendicular. So what will be the slope of the perpendicular line? Well, we're starting out with a positive, so the perpendicular would have to be a negative. And what's the reciprocal of 2? 1/2. So that would be your perpendicular slope. Okay, so let's do the same thing for -3. What would be the parallel slope? -3. What would be the perpendicular slope? Positive. Reciprocal, 1/3, right? The reciprocal of 3 is 1/3. What if my slope is 1/2? What would be the parallel slope? 1/2. What would be the perpendicular slope? -2 over 1. That's okay if you write it over 1. That's fine. All right, so we already said this. So parallel slope, make sure you get it, would be 0. And the perpendicular slope would be undefined. Okay? All right. So we've got that. Now let's actually look at combining this with the slope formula. So tell whether the lines through the given points are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So line 1 has the following 2 points. 8, 12, 7, -5. I've got 2 options. I could physically plot these on a graph and connect them with a line and then count my rise over my runs. Or, even easier, I could just use my slope formula, which tells me I want to find the change of the y and then divide it by the change of the x. So slope is equal to, what's my y sub 2? -5 minus 12 all over 7 minus 8. So -5 minus 12 is -17. 7 minus 8 is -1. Simplifying that gets us to positive 17. So the slope of line 1 is 17. Now let's find the slope of line 2. So finding the slope gets us 2 minus 3 all over 8 minus -9. Well, 2 minus 3 is -1. Remember, keep change, so plus plus, that becomes a positive 17. Are they parallel lines? Yeah, they're not the same, so they're not parallel. Now you have to be very, very careful with the whole perpendicular part, 'cause what they like to do is they like to trick you, and they'll make this be a positive and this be a positive, and you see that it's a reciprocal, and you're like, oh, it's got to be perpendicular because it's a reciprocal. It has to be both opposite in sign. So do I have a negative and a positive? Yes. Do I have reciprocals of each other? Yes. So they're going to be perpendicular to each other. So you can either write it out as line 1 is perpendicular to line 2. You want to use symbol in shorthand. Or you can just write that they are perpendicular. You want to write out the word perpendicular. That would work as an answer. Or if you want to write out a lovely sentence that says line 1 is perpendicular to line 2, you can do that also. That's up to you. Whichever way you think is the easiest. Do not just write perpendicular though. So you can write line 1 perpendicular to line 2. I'm just using a cursive L for my line. All right, over to B. Let's find the slope of line 1. So we're going to do 4 minus -4 all over -1 minus 3. So negative plus plus, so I get 8 over -4, which is -2 for my slope of line 1. The slope of line 2, 1 minus 7 all over 5 minus 2. So 1 minus 7 is -6. 5 minus 2 is 3. Reducing that gets me -2. So what's true about the lines? They are parallel. So we can do line 1 parallel to line 2. If you want to write out the words parallel, feel free to do that too. And then let's do C. Finding the slope of line 1. We're going to do 2 minus 4 all over 6 minus a negative 1. And you guys got to be really careful with minusing these negatives here. That's where a lot of these errors are going to occur. So in my numerator, I get negative 2 over 7. Can't simplify that, so we'll leave it. Now let's do the same thing for line 2. 8 minus 5 all over 12 minus 2. Gets me 3 over 10. Well, they're opposite in sign. Are they reciprocals of each other? So are they parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Neither. Good. So I'm just going to write neither. Would those lines intersect with each other? Well, what's the only type of lines that would never intersect with each other? Parallel. Are they parallel? So they would eventually intersect with each other. They would not intersect at a 90-degree angle because they are not perpendicular, but they would eventually intersect. Okay? Would you be able to do that on the homework? Yes? All right. So then the last example, we're going to actually do some graphing. Oh, there's a D? How did I miss the D? All right, let's do that one quickly. So negative 5 minus 6. 3 minus 3, oh boy, negative 11 over 0. What does that get me?
0.
Undefined. And I am going to want you to take it to undefined. If you leave it like this, I'm not going to give you full credit for it because I don't know that you understand fully what that means. So remember, if 0 is in the denominator, it goes to undefined. So now let's do the next one. 8 minus 8 over 3 minus negative 4, which gets us 0 over 7. What does that simplify to? 0. Take it to 0. If you leave it like this, I'm not going to give you full credit because I don't know that you fully understand that this is a 0 slope. So they're not the same, so they're not parallel. Are they perpendicular?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So L1's perpendicular to L2. All right, now let's get to the graphing part. So in our last example, it says line H passes through the point 3, 0. So let's go ahead and plot that point. So 3, 0 means I'm moving to the right 3 on the x-axis. I'm putting my point there. 7, 6, so we're going to go to the right 7, up 6. Put a point there. All right. So let's go ahead and graph that line. So as best as you can, connect it. If you need to use a straight edge, corner of a piece of paper, if that helps you out, feel free to do so. Let's label it line H. All right, so now we're going to graph the line perpendicular to H that passes through the point 2, 5. All right, so point 2, 5, where does that end up? So over 2, up 5, puts me right here in yellow. I need my line to be perpendicular. So is it going to have a positive or a negative slope? It's going to have a negative slope because I know that the red is positive, so my perpendicular needs to be negative. So it's going to be maybe somewhere like right around here, right? So how do we know for sure? Well, what's the slope of the red line right now? What's the rise? What's the run? So it's going over 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 over 4, which reduces to what? 3 over 2. All right. If this would have said parallel from my yellow point, what would I have done? I would have done the same slope. I would have went up 3 over 2. Or I could have went backwards, down 3 over 2. Or right? And that would have gotten me my parallel line, but we're doing perpendicular. So what's my perpendicular slope going to be? Not negative 3 over 2, negative 2 over 3. So that means from this yellow point, I need to go down 2 units. So down 1, 2. And I'm going to run 3 units. 1, 2, 3, which puts my point right here. If you want another point, feel free to go backwards. We can go up 2, 1, 2, and run backwards 3. That might help you make a little bit better of a straight line. Okay, on your homework, on your quizzes, what I'm looking for is at least one other point when you connect it. Does that make sense? So at least have this point to the right or this point to the left of it before you make your straight line. So if you just go in there and eyeball it, I'm not going to give you full credit. Okay, so it's perpendicular. What can we put in there to show that it's perpendicular? The little square thing, good. So that's making it perpendicular line. Okay. Again, if I would have said parallel instead of perpendicular, then we would have done the same slope. We would have went up 3, which I would have run out of room, so I would have went backwards, down 3 over 2, and then I would have had parallel lines. Don't just eyeball it. Don't just go, oh, I could sketch in a perpendicular line. Okay, get another point on here, so that means you have to do the opposite slope. Or do the same slope if it says parallel. Questions? All right, so your homework